Guys, I know I say this all the time, almost every day, but if you hear noise, just know the people are celebrating in my country right now. It was big rugby, we won. So, just like Barcelona won 7-0. So, if you hear any celebration cars hooting or whatever, just know it's celebrating, right? But what a performance from this man and Barcelona in particularly. Hat-trick hero for Rafinha, and it's just great vibes, guys. We're going to dive right into the video as always. There's so much I want to talk about. Subscribe as always, but let's get right into the video. When Barcelona looked to build up, we had a fairly easy way of getting up the pitch as Valladolid would actually try to press up the centre backs and this deep lying player would try to sit on Casado. But we did see this wall pass into Casado and then Jules or Kubarsi would receive it just here and Barcelona would get up the pitch. Or the other way that Barcelona looked to get past this was the fullbacks would go a little bit higher where Inigo and Kubarsi would just receive the ball just wide of the centre backs. And we could even go and switch the ball over to this side as Valladolid didn't press once we got this first pass away from them. This wall pass is something that I haven't seen in a while at Barcelona. Maybe in the first half we saw this like 5 or 6 times, right? And it's a good thing because now you have to cover Casado as well. And the width from these centre backs, I think Flick is doing this because that allows the fullbacks to go up the pitch, and then initially you have the wingers inverting. Look at this for an example. Inigo has the ball wide, so Balde has to go up, and now Rafinha's in the half space. So now you have players that can receive the ball, ultimately having our dangerous players close together. On paper, Valladolid was actually in a 4-1-4-1 situation with Kike going up to next to Amala. However, in the game, they were actually defending in the midface in a 4-2-4 situation. But Jules Kounde was pretty important in this instance because he was dropping back to become a third centre-back and he was ultimately drawing these players out of position, which means that Olmo or Lamine Yamal could easily receive the ball for Barcelona in that half space, meaning they could totally bypass the midfield. The way that Flick is really utilizing Kounde is just incredible. He went from a static centre-back to one of the most mobile fullbacks / third centre-backs ever. And it's just incredible. And look at the space that this guy is finding, right? But the centre-backs are also pulling away at this Valladolid in this instance right over here. Also, the dropping of Pedri and Marc Casado was also another problem as these players couldn't go out to press Kubarsi, so the ball and the verticality could easily go through that way. And therefore, that forced them a lot more narrow than they would like to be, and that means the outlet to Dani Olmo and Jules Kounde could easily be in here and they could create this triangle with Lamine Yamal. I want to talk about this right side a little bit more, right? We did see that Olmo also went closer to Robert Lewandowski because, like I said, Flick wants Lamine Yamal to receive the ball in this area right over here, right? This would ultimately, of course, as we know, draw the players narrow, and then therefore Kounde would go around and looking to go over there. But many a times when this occurred, right, because Olmo is so narrow, that opened up a lot of holes for the centre backs, Kubarsi, to receive the ball and even drive up the pitch over here. And the movement from Pedri from deep could also really take advantage of this space, and Barcelona would look to have the good players on the ball. We did see in the goal from Rafinha, the first one I think, whereas Lamine came deep from here and he would switch the ball over and Rafinha would score the goal. So really good tactics from Mr. Hansi Flick, and I think this is going to be a common theme throughout the season where Lamine Yamal is going to receive the ball over here. With Lamine in the half space, we see that Olmo is a little bit closer to the center, right? And they're ultimately keeping these players narrow, allowing Kubarsi to drive up the pitch, and nobody can really jump out. Here we see Lamine receiving the ball, and look at the space that Kounde can now find himself in. And like I said, Hansi Flick wants this man to receive the ball here because he's much closer to goal and he can assist as well. Look at how Pedri is dribbling because that player cannot leave his space because of the verticality, because he needs to block the passing towards Olmo, but you can actually see it's Rafinha that can receive. This game we see that Hansi Flick is actually putting some variety towards this that I just said, that he wants Lamine to receive the ball in this area. Because of the fluidity of these front 5 or 4, I think, when Jules Kounde has to be a third centre-back in particular, Lamine has to remain wide, and then you'll see, because of the fluidity, one of Rafinha and Olmo or even Lewandowski will ultimately end up in this scenario right here, ultimately also keeping these players narrow. and therefore then the switch can go to Lamine Yamal, which is great. If Lamine receive the ball, it's great. If Rafinha in the half space receive the ball, it's also great. So great fluidity and great variation, because we were dangerous on all fronts, and that's all because of movement. And I think this man really just added movement to Xavi's system in more directness and verticality. One thing that I definitely can say about Hansi Flick's Barcelona is that we will never see consistently patterns of play with him. Of course, the pattern stays the same. However, the players will change constantly. So it's difficult to mark Barcelona in this instance. Look at where's Rafinha, and look at the pathway that Lewandowski can actually take advantage of as well. Nothing much really happened on that left-hand side, because we know that Rafinha is going to be drifting inward, so it was ultimately Balde who's going to keep the width for Barcelona. But one thing that do stand out for me is the way that the space here is utilized. You see that Inigo is sometimes even over there in that space, ultimately drawing players out of position. Of course, we do see that Pedri does that constantly as well. But there's a variation there I saw as well, Rafinha being also somebody to go into that instance. And we did see the runners in behind here, all more Lewandowski. And then, for an example, if the player goes out to Balde and the ball gets played in behind, it's Rafinha that can go over here. And the variations, it's just incredible to see. It's incredible to watch for Barcelona. But one thing I do want to say is that Inigo over here, this guy's a beast, right? The way that he's also penetrating the passes into the half space and into the central areas, and the verticality. And we talked about this. If you go back to the first video I did about Hansi Flick, about how he loves a left-footed centre back, the verticality in the goals has really been overshadowing the fact that we are literally playing with Kubarsi and Inigo. Just think about how crazy that is. Inigo and Kubarsi is our centre backs, right? But the verticality from this little lad is just incredible. And also, especially Inigo, when he's so wide, he can clearly find the balls in here, and Barcelona can only get dangerous from here. It's really astonishing to me that when you look at the heat map or you look at the average positioning, it's 4-3-3. But look at the way that Inigo is dropping off into those areas, right? Whereas with Xavi, we were completely static. And I think these guys being so wide allow the wingers to be centrally, right? So they can be options to receive the ball in between the lines. And when you have a guy like Pedri so deep controlling the ball, look at the amount of space that Rafinha is in there next to the referee, right? And this is almost like the 2-3-5 we talked about last season, right? And also Rafinha, and you see different players now popping up in these positions. And this is what fluidity is all about. And it's going to be very difficult for us to be stopped this way. Guys, we have reached the end of the first half. Yes, we're going to do a separate video on the second half, because things do change slightly or completely, and also to look how the opponents adjusted to Barcelona, right? I want to apologize again if you hear any noises of kids making noise, families making noise, hooting. South Africa played rugby today. We won, and it's rugby is pretty big. As always, guys, please do subscribe to the channel. It's going to help us a lot to get the family to grow bigger. We upload weekly Barcelona content. See you in the next one.